I'm Sarah Fensky, and this is the 314. Every episode, we sit down with St. Louisans who know what makes this place tick. Together, we explore why things are the way they are and how we can make them better. This episode of the 314 is sponsored by Cardinal Special Events. St. Louis Comptroller Darlene Green knows that City Hall has dropped the ball on the basics. And that's why earlier this month, she used her bully pulpit to demand urgency in dealing with ice and snow after perilous conditions persisted on city streets for 2 weeks. Her call ruffled feathers at City Hall, but it also mobilized the mayor's office, a big win for frustrated residents. Green's tenure as comptroller dates back to 1995, and as the city's financial watchdog, she's frequently been perceived as the adult in the room. She sat down with me recently to discuss what it will take to fix City Hall and why her current re-election campaign will be her last. I started our conversation by asking why she went public with her call for the mayor to hire private salt trucks and snowplows.
Here's what the deal is. I was at a meeting, a community meeting with the Clergy Coalition, and I was wrapping up my speaking, and then the good Reverend says to me, he says, everything's just so great, but I want to know, tell me, what can you do about this snow and this ice? That's what I want to know. And before I could answer, another lady chimed in, and I know you guys don't have enough employees to take care of everything. Can you hire local contractors? I said, I absolutely can definitely consider asking the mayor. I can ask her and let her know, actually remind her that I can sign an emergency contract.
Yeah.
I said, I will put a letter together as soon as I leave here and ask the mayor to consider an emergency. I can sign that emergency contract to hire local contractors. I did it. The letter went straight to the mayor's office. As soon as I got back, I was in a meeting. As a matter of fact, 2 meetings subsequent to the letter leaving the office. Next thing I know, I'm hearing from the press, and the press was just converging on my office. They wanted interviews. They wanted to know what's going on. But I never got a call from the mayor's office. I was expecting that call from the mayor. Thank you, Comptroller. Let's do this. And I was expecting that camaraderie, but I didn't. And so by the time the Channel 4 news anchor got there, she's like, well, didn't you know about what happened earlier today with the streets department? I said, no, tell me. So she informed me what happened with the streets department. I says, well, and she says, I thought you were giving a solution. She says, here is how God works. It's what the reporter said. You come with a solution and you didn't even know.
Yeah. And you hadn't been aware of, I guess, this mounting anger that had sort of built to this aldermanic hearing. The city said it was going to change its tactics, all that stuff. This really just sort of came out of this community conversation.
It came out of the community meeting, but of course I was aware of the meeting last evening where there was a huge number of participants saying that they wanted something done about the streets. So it wasn't surprising that I got the same question at a community meeting, and I wanted to take action. Yeah. That was my main concern. Let's take action. Let's do more. Because the mayor had also offered prior that she would have all city trucks on board to put salt in all the side streets. So I know that was a step.
Yeah. So
in my letter, I thanked her for that. I said, hey, let's go a step further. And that's basically what I was trying to do. Let's do a step further. And we've done it. And I very much appreciate, the cooperation of the mayor.
But so you didn't hear from her. She didn't call you.
No, she didn't.
Do you think her nose was a little bit out of joint that you went public with this?
Well, I don't know, but I really don't have time to care about that. I have to deal with the best interests of the people. We've got an unusual situation with the ice and snow, and I'm understanding that people are saying that we haven't had it in 25 years. And to me, that's kind of like an emergency. If you haven't had to deal with something like this, let's treat it as an emergency. Whether you want to say it's a state of the emergency, it's still an emergency for people who are trying to get to and from work, to and from, the kids to and from school. So let's do all that we can, all hands on deck. And so that's what I hope that I have now with the mayor.
So beyond this sort of emergency situation with the snow removal in the last few weeks, do Do you think overall the city has dropped the ball on providing those basic city services that we all count on as residents?
I can absolutely tell you that we can do better, and we should. And I have dropped those messages to our mayor, our director of operations, and I am very hopeful that eventually it'll catch fire so that those basic city services, filling the potholes, getting the trash picked up, all of those things can get done better because, after all, it's the taxpayers' dollars.
Are you feeling that kind of lack of urgency that I think is, what I hear people talking about when I'm out and about is people are like, things don't work. And I don't hear people at City Hall talking about that. Is that true to your experience at City Hall?
It might just be a different set of people's eyes thinking that they got it right or they are going to get it right. Instead of using, say, directors that had been there in the past, you've got a lot of new directors. There is nothing like understanding that there's no sense in inventing the wheel. Just trash, pick it up, just like you did, 30 years ago. You pick it up, you get it out, and fill in the pothole. Those aren't new things, and those are basic things. And those you have to have a robust program of getting that done. And to me, that's your first priority: service delivery to the people.
Do you think the city has taken its eye off the ball on that? I mean, you've seen now multiple administrations, been there since 95. Is there less of a priority on that than there used to be?
I can tell you, I can definitely tell you I've seen differences in administrations. I saw when there was a great improvement, and over the years that improvement was maintained, and then it has lacked. And it didn't start with just this administration. It started with the administration prior. And I'm going to tell you what I believe is the politicking of the quote-unquote work. You can't be at the head and then politics with people's tax dollars. You got to give the people the basics. You can't say, I'm going to do this over here and not over in this neighborhood. You have to do it all for all people. Pick up trash north, south, central, all the time. Keep everything that is basic to the livelihoods and the life of people that live in the city the same. Serve the same. Now, if you want politics, let's do it in other levels of government. Political science teaches you to do your politics, but it doesn't tell you to restrict or to remove or to take sides with people's delivery of city services.
Do you think
that's basic? I'm telling you from what I saw in the former administration, and I was very, very, very public about that. And some of that has spilt over.
Okay.
And I gotta say it because I needed to stop. We all needed to stop. We all need the basic city services in the city. Nobody's the chief bottle washer type, that gets it right all the time, but you want to get that right. The city services, fill the potholes, and that's basic. Yeah. Get the basics right and then go on to the bigger things. Because people get excited about the big things, yeah, but they get really, really angry when their basics aren't taken care of. And I know that from the time I've been in office.
Yeah. So you trace this back to the Cruisen administration. I know you didn't use
have
her
to,
name, but yeah.
Because I know, and I've talked to her to her face. I said, come on, Lida, let's do this. Let's get it right.
Yeah.
And she knows that I know, and if she was in disagreement, her way of telling me, oh, let's not share our dirty laundry. I'm like, what the heck? Well, I'm going to get it right.
So we're still kind of in the hangover from that period today?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's it going to take to fix that? How do you feel like
you got to get it public? You got to let the people know. Don't be ashamed of doing your job. Just do your job. Yeah. That's not the politics. That's not why you're there. You're supposed to do this first.
Yeah.
And then the other stuff. If you want to slap the comptroller around, go over here, but then make sure that your potholes are filled right. You picking up that trash and all those other bases that the city needs. You got that right. That's number one. Now let's go slap on the comptroller and say, I did this and she didn't. Do that kind of stuff. Whatever it is that you have to do in order to make yourself feel royal, whatever, do that. And I said that to Lida on multiple occasions.
So Alderwoman Daniela Velasquez has put forward a proposal to have a city manager. You've now had some disappointment with several administrations dealing with city services. Do you feel like having a city manager in there instead would solve some of these problems?
We could use a structural change different than what the Alderwoman is introducing. She is offering only a piecemeal short term. She moves the budget director away from the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, and she puts a very highly paid professional called a city administrator, not a manager. That's a huge, huge difference. It adds a layer of bureaucracy of government with the city's budget dollars, leaves out the comptroller, leaves out the board, and that creates tension, even more tension that we would have now today.
Okay.
But if we would go to a true city manager where the mayor and the council would come together, and then they would select a city manager, and that city manager would be over all things, including the finances, then you would have a structure that is stronger. And that's what we need to be looking for, a strong structure in government where the politics is left out of delivering city services.
So you like the city manager idea. You do not like the current proposal, which, as you say, that's a city administrator. That's a different animal.
It's a different animal altogether, yes.
And that would come at some of the things that your office currently does. So this is kind of the second time you've had to fend off a proposal aimed at sort of reducing the comptroller's power. That was something the City Charter Commission looked at this summer. You were very effective in blocking that. Is this going to be a similar sort of battle, maybe?
I think so, because I think the people have gone beyond understanding how effective you are when you protect the city's credit. We have been able to do some extraordinary things in the saving of the mapping system or department for the federal government. They have invested $1.7 billion into the city of St. Louis to stay and save 3,000 jobs. We were able to get that achieved because we were able to give the federal government the land. I got a call from Otis Williams at the SLDC.
That's the former director.
The former director of SLDC. He says the mayor wants to know, Comptroller, can we give them the land? I said, absolutely we can. We have good credit. We can do that. And we were able to do that. We mortgaged 1320 Market in order so that we could give the land to the federal government. That's $1.7 billion then invested into the city of St. Louis, saving 3,000 jobs, and a potential 1,500 jobs could be added to the city of St. Louis. So that was a huge indication of how important credit is. And then we look to the future, and now we have at the St. Louis International Airport an expansion project of $2.8 billion to expand the terminal. The terminals will join Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 because Southwest has been chomping at the bit to expand. So they will take over Terminal 1, and the other airlines will follow. But $2.8 billion will create at least 1,000 construction jobs in our area, and it will continue to expand the areas around the airport, and it'll be a great thing for the citizens of St. Louis. We were able to protect the airport from privatization.
Yeah, you fought hard on that.
Fought very hard, and we were successful. And now we're able to use that hard fight to expand. Good credit at the airport, good credit in the city makes a huge difference in moving the city forward. And that's the message I want to say about the city's credit, because people in city government don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, that's been a big focus of yours, is getting that up. And you've been able to get that credit rating up.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the results of that. And it does feel like there's some good big things happening. You know, you mentioned the National Geospatial Association. You mentioned this huge project getting underway at the airport. And yet it seems like so many city residents right now are in kind of a surly mood. I don't know if you're hearing that when you're out and about campaigning.
I am, and it has to do with the basics. You know, that's where the people come together mostly on the basics. You know, one of the city residents says, I was having a baby shower in the summer in my backyard. but I'm so ashamed because of the smelly trash.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish they would come to get that so that I can have a much better time inviting my family and friends for this event. And so I feel that. I feel the people. I hear the people. I was out at coffee with the mayor just this past, I believe it was in September, and we were sitting there having coffee on early morning, and one of our constituents passed by. He spoke to us both, and he's looked at me. When he turned around, he says, "Can you get her to fix the streets?" And so I looked at the mayor and I was like, "Mayor Jones, this is what I've been saying to you." And so these are things that are common knowledge. And for a person that's been as long as I have the knowledge of what it looked like before this administration and administration before that, in terms of how those mayors took charge of their cities and says, we're going to, clean off all of the empty lots, and until they're clean. We're going to make sure that every street that needs to be paved is going to be paved, and we're going to not stop there, but we're going to fix these potholes, because a lot of the construction firms that put these underwires, electric, or I guess it'll be electric, and Wi-Fi underground, they mess up the streets. And so what we have to do is we would make them responsible to repave them, but we also have to go over that ourselves. So to make those roads smooth so that we can not cost our taxpayers to have automobile problems.
Yeah.
And it's expensive.
Oh, we're all so sick of that. You hit one of these big potholes and then
you find yourself in an auto shop with a bill.
Yeah.
That should be borne by the city. We should be paying for paving the streets, because you start off by paying your taxes, which means we have the dollars to pave those streets to get you to and from on a smooth road.
Has Mayor Jones been receptive to you sort of pushing this is what you think the city should be doing? And, as you had that conversation where the man said, tell her to fix the roads, and you're like, Mayor Jones, this is on you. How she
has been, and I give her credit for being receptive. She's a good listener. I will definitely give her credit for that. Absolutely.
She said in response to Velasquez's proposal about the city administrator, she said, the mayor, according to the charter, is the CEO. I've been acting as the CEO of the city for the last 4 years. How do you think she's done as a CEO?
Well, I kind of want to talk about Darlene Green and what Darlene Green has done over the last 4 years and actually the last 29. I think I've been a great asset in my job. I've worked very hard in my job as Comptroller for the City of St. Louis, respecting city taxpayers. That's number one. Making sure that we are protecting the tax dollars, making sure that we've got good credit. And it's kind of like a slow growth, like the tortoise. Slow but steady, but sure. And we finally see I got in the office with a triple B credit. Triple B, which is junk credit. Now we're at a double A.
Yeah.
We were excited in 2008 when we received the A+. And you remember, in 2008, while other cities were, we were in the economic downturn and other cities were having a lot of problems with the derivative investments that they made, the city's comptroller, I never invested in derivatives, ever. And so we didn't have those problems, and we got the A+ in 2008. Now we have a double A credit in the city of St. Louis for the first time in 50 years. And that is huge for our city, because I'll tell you why. We have a low population. Our population growth is still, not what it should be. Actually, we're going down.
Yeah.
But we look at Kansas City, which is right across the state, and their credit rating is the exact same as ours, a double A. And they just achieved the double A in the same year that we did, which was last year.
So that is definitely something to be proud of, that credit rating. And yet, even as you've achieved that, you find yourself facing two opponents.
Yes, I know.
Which is not really a typical situation for Comptroller Darlene Green. We're all just used to you just cakewalking to re-election.
And I have been so grateful, to not have opponents. And I do have an opponent or two now, and they are there. And I think that is a challenge that I am willing to take. Because what I can see is those two opponents, one in particular, very political.
This is Donna Behringer, the former alderwoman, former state rep.
Former alderwoman and former state rep. Her record and my record are two totally different records. I have a lot to show from what I've done over the years. And there's crickets when we talk about Donna's record. Seriously. And I mean that because I believe she and my other opponent, they're both taking advantage of the little snafus that they have read in the paper. You know, we've had a new accounting system that has come on board within the last few years. And like all new accounting systems, we have big problems. And we have worked hard to correct a lot of those problems when it comes to paying the city's bills. But of course, they're taking advantage. I can tell you, we can get a check out in one day, but our average is getting those bills paid once they're entered in the system. See, now the new system is digital. It used to be paper driven. All the paper left the departments and they all converged onto the Comptroller's office, and we did all the data entry. Now that data entry, that digital, is done out in the departments. And so once a bill is entered into the system and we see it, we're going to pay that bill because that manager in that department has already put in the approval of paying this bill. They say, we have received these widgets and these products, and so this is a bill that we're saying that you should pay, Comptroller, or we have received this service and you can pay this. Once we get that approval, we then click in and pay those bills, and we can get those bills paid in 2 days.
So you've got an interesting job in that it's your job to pay things quickly, but you're also the financial watchdog. And so there's some bills that maybe you want to slow down. You have questions about some programs and how some things have been administered. How do you balance concerns you might have about, certain expenditures that have been publicly reported versus the need to make sure that vendors who are doing good work get paid quickly?
And that's a good question because we have just had that challenge. As you know, we've had a problem with the building division, and we have identified a young man who did leave his job. And so what we did in the Comptroller's office is search all of the companies and also any pending bills, payments, and we froze them.
This is tied to the city building inspector who resigned after questions about his ties
That
to
is correct.
Receiving ARPA funds.
And so there was
you moved fast.
We moved quickly. We also we analyzed them because we knew that there was federal dollars involved. The mayor had contacted the FBI because of that, but then I saw that there was also local dollars, local tax dollars from a bond issue. So then I contacted the circuit attorney for that, because that's Gabe Gore's area, and he thanked me for doing that. And then I took a step further and said, let's look and see if there's anything pending and owing to any of the companies he's associated with, and it was, and we froze that payment. I believe that payment was somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 or something. It was so that was huge to stop.
Yeah.
Before that went out the door, so that has not been paid. So you're right. I have a big job, and it is to not only pay the bills quickly, but also to pay attention, because this one bill, payment could have gone out if I had been listening to the naysayers about, not paying the bills. But I have to not only listen, but I also have to do a good job and one that is competent. And that's what I do. That's been my life work, has been accounting. And I'm grateful that I'm in a job, though it's political, that I know accounting. And I've done this, ever since my first job at Brown Shoe Company.
So one of the criticisms that the Post-Dispatch ran a story about, this was back in 2023. They said you were only in City Hall just a couple days a week.
Well, during the COVID, that is absolutely correct. And in some of those weeks, like every other employee, I wasn't there at all. But that was during the COVID. So I saw that article, and I knew that people were starting to come back, for in-person meetings. But I have to also consider that I was in the 60 club. And then there were people who were saying, okay, you got to watch it. And so I had to make sure that I was covered. So I made sure I covered all of my meetings and made sure that nothing was left uncovered, because a lot of people in my office I knew had the COVID. They had it for several times. And so I said, I'm going to be there. But even when I was in the office, I didn't necessarily meet in person.
Sure. It makes sense.
We were in the same office, but we were far from each other. So those kind of articles come and they go. And the most important thing is to do the work, do it competently, and be there on behalf of the people. And that's what I do. That is what I've always done. And that's what I hope to do in the next 4 years.
Were you tempted when you heard these challengers coming to just go out on top, not have to get back in the trenches and have a political fight with the level of experience you have in your age?
That's also a good question, because I'll tell you, if either of those challengers were good, I would step aside and would love to be an advisor. But I'm telling you, they are not the right picks. And I believe in the city so much that they need someone that's really going to go to bat. Now, Donna Behringer voted yes for Prop B. The whole city voted no. And so you got to know that here's a person that really doesn't get it when it comes to the city's finances. She voted yes and said that she would have voted for all of the charter changes. And so that says that you don't have it, when it comes to the city's financial structure. The financial structure is so important to this city, in particular, because the population is continuing to shrink. So you gotta make it up by a strong fiscal structure in the city government. And we started out strong. I'm gonna tell you, back when we visited New York, going to the rating agencies, we all, from the mayor's office, the comptroller's office, as well as president of the board, all came together to promise to do those things and take those steps to strengthen the city's credit. And we've had a long run. We've had a great run. And now we're seeing the fruit of that. And so we need to have someone come in after me that has that same sense of urgency to protect tax dollars, the same sense of competency to protect tax dollars, protect the city's credit, and not to just be this political presence, because the people have so many of those presences right now.
Are you working on a succession plan, or are you hoping to be here for 4 years, 8 years?
I am working on a succession plan, and I believe that we're going to see a good replacement for the comptroller. If I am elected again, we will see a great replacement that will carry on the strong fiscal management that I have started in the city of St. Louis.
It sounds like you feel like this is probably your last campaign.
I believe it should be. But I believe I'm fighting hard so that I can continue to stabilize the city of St. Louis and keep it strong. This is a great city. It always has been a great city. The charter written in, 1913, was a great charter to protect it. I believe in it, and that's why I fight hard to make sure our fiscal structure that was created all those years ago is maintained. And it has helped this city move forward. It really, really has. And so I'm excited about my next 4 years. I really am.
We'll be right back. Looking for an exciting event space for a rehearsal dinner, fundraiser, corporate function, or something in between? Bring your group to Busch Stadium for a uniquely St. Louis venue. Cardinals Special Events will help you hit your event out of the park. Visit cardinals.com/events for more information today. And now back to the show. That was St. Louis Comptroller Darlene Green, who sat down with me last week. I always enjoy her perspective on local politics, and I do want to offer a little clarity. When she mentioned Prop B, which her opponent Donna Behringer said she voted for, that was the Charter Commission proposal that would have allowed aldermen to add or remove spending from the city budget, and voters decisively rejected that. Now, Darlene and I chatted a bit about Mayor Tishaura Jones, and her fate is a big question for many political insiders right now. And joining us now with his perspective on that question is St. Louis Magazine staff writer Ryan Kroll.
Hey, Sarah. Great to be here.
Ryan, everybody's talking about Mayor Tishaura Jones. A lot of people saying that she lost the election with the city's response to the big snow that happened on January 5th. Do you think she can steer the ship past the spate of ugly headlines involving snow and ice and win re-election?
It's possible. Let me kind of dodge that question, though, and give you what I think is kind of interesting in that it is kind of wild if you step back and look at it, that over the past 4 years, the Jones administration has seen this, terrific reduction in crime, specifically homicides being cut in half. And they've also sort of been in charge of the city as it's seen these two huge, multi-$100 million windfalls come its way. And kind of despite those two very important data points, it's still going to be like a tough re-election for her. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
Yeah, as you say, you wouldn't expect that with, getting this big sum of money from the Rams to spend, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. The city got more than almost anywhere else in the country. Why do you think Tashara Jones is in the fight of her life?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think it definitely has something to do with the fact that these two bits of good news, the crime truly being down and this big sums of money that the city kind of lucked into in a way, they're kind of a mixed bag for whoever's in charge, because on the one hand, everyone knows about the hundreds of millions of dollars that the city has, but yet, the streets still aren't plowed, or there's still potholes on the streets, or the trash isn't getting picked up. So it kind of throws sort of salt in the wound, or it sort of exacerbates these sort of annoyances that city residents have. Like, we have all this money, and yet there's still these quality of life issues. And same with the crime. They hear that crime is down on paper, but maybe they don't feel any safer. So it is kind of a mixed bag for the mayor in that regard.
So with this snowstorm, the city has stressed that this was historic, maybe not the largest amount of snow that we've had, but the fact that it didn't get much warmer for 3 weeks, that was highly unusual for a St. Louis winter. Do you think the mayor deserves blame for how the city handled these weather issues?
Yeah, I think she definitely deserves some blame. And I think her streets director didn't do her any favors by sort of pleading ignorance to what was going on. But I think whether or not she deserves it is a little bit secondary, or I should say whether or not I think she deserves it is a little bit secondary, because she is totally getting all the blame, right? At a crucial time, just a few weeks before re-election, someone at City Hall told me, I don't know if Kara can beat Tashara, but I think the ice might beat Tashara, so...
And you're talking there about Alderwoman Kara Spencer, who nearly beat her 4 years ago. She's running again this year. The other main candidate here, well-funded candidate, is Recorder of Deeds Michael Butler. Do you think either of them is well-positioned to make this an issue and to ride this to victory?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll be able to ride it to victory, but definitely Alderwoman Spencer is definitely doing her best to do that. She's been messaging on this hard. She's been at aldermanic hearings talking about how she herself has been snowed in and iced in. She's been on social media with all these photos of, streets looking like skating rinks and that kind of thing. So she's definitely given it her best shot. On the other hand, a lot of people have been quick to point out that Spencer has been in a position of power in the city for like a decade now. So if things aren't quite up to snuff, she deserves a little bit of that blame. So I think she has to be really careful how she kind of messages on that, not to overdo it. But it's been an effective, point of attack for her for sure.
So this may be an even more effective point of attack for Recorder of Deeds Michael Butler. He has not been having anything to do with the main administration of the city for the last 4 years. His job has been to record deeds. Do you think there's an opening here for him?
Maybe it might just be a sort of difference of style, where maybe the Alderwoman's a little more aggressive in that regard. I don't know. I think Mike's like a super smart guy. I've always enjoyed talking to him. I'm always really sort of impressed with his perspective. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the two people to make it through that first election or the first round of voting in March. But I think at this point, it could really be any two of those three who are going to be on the ballot for the second round of voting in April.
And Ryan, one last question for you today. This snowstorm was in early January. The city is finally digging its way out. That snow has finally melted. Do you really think that's going to be top of mind for people in March?
Oh, I think it will be, because, like, for instance, I drove over quite a bit of ice to get out of my alley to get here today. So it's whether or not I want to think about it, I still am thinking about it. I suspect other people will be as well. Come March 4th, I believe, is whenever people first cast that first round of ballots.
Well, Ryan Kroll, the staff writer at St. Louis Magazine, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm Sarah Fensky. That's the 314 for today. You can find out more in our podcast show notes and at stlmag.com. You can also find me every day in your inbox, thanks to St. Louis Magazine's fantastic free newsletter, St. Louis Daily. It's a fresh take on St. Louis with insight and original reporting. Sign up at stlmag.com/newsletters. The 314 is a production of St. Louis Magazine. I'm Sarah Fensky, and this is The 314. See you next time.